Thank you. So I am the last person on the planet you would think would be up here talking to you about anything to do with networking. I hate the word. Most of the networking events I go to, I find icky, manipulative. Most of the people I would say were phony, users. But I learned a very hard truth years ago, and that was nothing happens without people. People write the checks. People know the best opportunities. They know where all of the jobs are. So nothing happens without people. But I learned that most people don't have the dots, they can't connect the dots, or they don't leverage the dots for the good of themselves and the good for everybody else. So let me tell you a little about my story. So my story is, I grew up in a small town in Idaho, population 300. Did anybody here see the movie Napoleon Dynamite? I went to that high school. That's my locker in there. And I was very, very shy. And then in junior high, I was bullied by a couple of teenage boys who would see me coming down the aisle or the hall, and they would yell this famous line from Cary Grant, "Judy, Judy, Judy." And I don't know why, but I left feeling fat, dumb, and ugly. And that stayed with me for years and years and years. And so that experience, I didn't dare really reach out to people for help, and most of us don't. I didn't know anyone of wealth, money, or influence. And research shows if you've been raised lower to middle class, you don't ask. We've been taught to keep our head down, work hard, don't ask for help, and that someone will notice. I worked hard, and guess what? Nobody noticed. But what I noticed was it mattered who you knew. Kind of like the good old boys club. So I picked up the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it said, smile at people, just say hello. And so I did that, and I found out people liked me. And I found out people, for the most part, would help me if I asked. And so I want to ask you today, imagine what would happen if the right door opened. If you got that lucky break, if you got the person that you needed to be successful where you might be. And the reason I am on this stage with you today is I'm going to share what has taken me a lifetime to learn. I'm going to share what I call my 4 factors of success that are simple but powerful that you can start doing today. Please do them yourself. Teach them to your children. So number 1 is a fact, and that fact is everything that you need is here. There's no lack of scarcity of resources. There are 7 billion people on the planet, $369 trillion in global private wealth, projected by Credit Suisse by 2019. Even what we call the M1 money market in the United States, that's checking, banking accounts, is $70 billion. I recently had a gentleman call me with $1 billion looking to invest. So it was surprising to me, having been raised sort of poor, there's a lot of money out there. There's also so many opportunities you couldn't count them, and information doubling every few months. And these are kind of the building blocks that you need to make anything happen. For me, I often say it's like playing 3D chess. You get a sprinkling of a couple of ideas, you pull in a little money, and you can make anything happen. Why don't we do this? Because of factor number 2, fear. Fear is really the enemy. And did you know half of us identify as shy? How many people here like me think they're shy? Yeah, half of us. But psychologists show that it's really only 10% of us think that way. And you're like me. You thought, what would I have to offer? What difference would it have made? Well, recently I learned this concept. These are 2 words in Hebrew for fear. And it would have made such a profound difference for me. Now, the first one was me almost all the time. When something happened, I was afraid. I typically got my chocolate and ran to my cave. I imagined the very worst thing that could happen, when the reality is many of those things were good for me. They propelled me to the next level of success, and it was the second, Yura. And this is what happens when you get out of your comfort zone and enter a space that you know you're born for. It is your vision, your future. So one of the things that I want to talk to you about is, not only are we afraid of what people think of us, we're afraid of being ridiculed. Now, when I was in graduate school, my professor called me in one day and he said, Judy, the guys on your team don't want to be on your team anymore. And I said, what? And he said, they say you're too aggressive. Now, I literally went up to his desk, I took my fist and I went, I am not aggressive. Who said I'm aggressive? And of course, I cried all the way home. And he later said to me, you need to care about other people's feelings. And I'm like, feelings? Who cares about feelings? We've got work to do. So I learned early that we needed to really pay attention to what other people had to say. We could learn a lot instead of going to our cave with chocolate. So the next thing that I want to talk to you about is probably the thing we fear the most, and it's the fear of failure. So once I read an article and it said, here's how we can become financially independent in America. Be a doctor, a lawyer, inherit it, marry it. And I thought, oh my gosh, the first 4 are out. And number 5 was start a business. And I said, how hard could it be? I got a $1.5 million SBA loan and quickly found out. I thought I was going to die. It was so difficult. I found a bankruptcy attorney and I went just shaking in my boots with my financials. And he looked at me and he goes, you're not even close. And I said, what? And he said, you're not close. And I said, but I'm broke. And so I thought, okay, I'll try to turn it around. I had a friend say to me, they can break you, but they can't eat you. I wasn't sure. I was feeling like I was being eaten. But I found that if I embraced that fear, and what happened is it put steel up my spine. After I got through that, I became the CEO of a public company. I started getting speeches globally. It turns out that every fear that is one of these serious fears that you have is a gift. And so instead of saying, what is the worst thing that can happen, say maybe what is the best thing that could happen? What is the gift here? And if I think in my life back to the worst things that ever happened to me and where I might be if those things hadn't have happened, I wouldn't have been in such a good place. I mean, really, if you think about it, it's almost like you get propelled. The universe says, out of here, you're going to jump. The third factor that I want to talk to you about is the power of friends. So we've talked about everything you need is here. You need to kick fear to the curb. So the first place I'm going to tell you to go is utilize the network you already have. On average, we know 600 people. These are people who usually know us, like us, trust us, so we should be less fearful in having to ask them for help. And this is the biggest mistake I see that people make, not using the network they have. And just an example, when I signed my book contract with McGraw-Hill, my agent called me and she said, I'm going to introduce you to Mike Muni. He's the founder of Act Software, built it, sold it for $48 million. He now has the top app for connections. And I think the two of you could work on something together. He flew to Salt Lake. We had a charming dinner. I said to him, Mike, I've never heard of your app. What are you doing for marketing? And he told me, and he looked really sad, and he goes, oh, Judy, if I could just get an article in Success magazine. I said, Mike, when you go home, I want you to call my agent, who I've known for less than 6 months, who you've known for many years. Her best friend is Darren Hardy, who publishes Success magazine. Now, he almost fell out of his chair. And I can tell you, this happens to me week in and week out. And the thing is, we don't share with the people who are already in our circle what our goals are, what obstacles we're meeting. And so a trick, if all you remember of what I teach you today is this one thing, it will major change your life. So you tell people, this is where I'm at. This is my story. And then you ask what I call the 2 golden questions. Number 1, what other ideas do you have for me? Number 2, who else do you know I should talk to? And I can promise you the majority of the things that you need are already in the network that you have. So number 4 factor of success is getting in the right room. And so people will say to me, well, that's well and good, but now I decided to start a business and I've got to come up with $4 million. Nobody in my network's got that kind of money. So I will tell you, you need to think about joining a powerful organization or a group. Think about where the people you need hang out are. And so getting in the right room is absolutely critical. And what is a right room? A right room has people that are smarter than you and have the resources that you need. Now, Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's partner, once said when he goes to a conference and he meets roughly 100 people, there's 5 he can't live without. There's 20 he doesn't care to see again as long as he lives. You've met them too. And the rest are kind of wait and see. And so what I would tell you, you want to look for 3 things in people in your network. Research shows when we meet a stranger, the number 1 thing we look for is warmth. We don't want somebody that's going to hurt us, kill us. If somebody is warm and caring, that kind of throws out bad actors, the sociopaths, those mice studying to be rats. The second thing is a level of competence, and then I add a 3rd, generosity, because just because people can help you doesn't mean they will. Those are critical. Now, I used to say I would only let people in my network who had a good head, a good heart, and a good gut. And I finally boiled it down to, are you an Oprah or a Martha Stewart? Now, both of these women are brilliant. They're billionaires. They're really, really good at what they do. But if I had to have one that would have my back and my future, it's Oprah. So you want to be careful who you have in your network. So, why would someone like me be up here talking to you? Shy, bullied, spent much of my life fearing failure. It's because I learned that just these few things will allow you to use your potential to achieve your dreams. If I can do it, I promise you that you can do it too. And I want you to think about connecting and creating. Connect and create. Bless you.